The views and opinions expressed by the hosts do not state or reflect those of the company and its management. Furthermore, the assumptions, views, opinions, and insinuations made by the host or guests do not reflect those of the show, the management, and the network.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to our talk show for tonight. I am Fea Monique Mola.
And I am Dexter Masongsong Jr.,
your host for the Fea and Dexter show, wherein we will discuss the different ethical frameworks
and how it is applied in our daily lives.
Magandang gabi sa iyo, partner. How was your day?
Well, just the usual lang naman, partner. Eskwela gamay, pero chismis dako.
Wow naman, partner. Same vibes tayo. Ako nga, medtech sa umaga, pero marites sa gabi. Kidding aside, sa show natin ngayon, we will be talking about deontological ethics. Anong masasabi mo sa topic natin ngayon, partner?
Napaka-interesting sa ating series ngayon, partner, no? In our past episodes, we had talked about natural law ethics and utilitarianism ethics. And now, we're down to the third ethical framework, yung deontological ethics. So this gives us another perspective in articulating and analyzing different ethical cases that we face through life. It also embeds us sets of values different from the other framework, which can be determinants in examining ethical issues.
Napaka-intriguing naman yan. Okay, wag na natin patagalin pa. Let us welcome our first out of 5 guests for today. He took a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy and is now a college professor in the La Salle University. Help me welcome Mr. Miguel Astronomo.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Ms. Fea and Mr. Dexter.
Hello po. So for starters, what is deontology in simple terms?
So, deontology is an ethical theory that uses rules to distinguish right from wrong. One is not expected to pose any question, but is asked to take the command as it is given, no ifs and no buts. It's as simple as that. The historical origin of this particular moral theory can be traced back to the early beginnings of human civilization, wherein I quote, "At a time when the word of the chief, or the king, or God, or any other recognized authority for that matter, was given unconditionally and without invitation to appeal on the basis of consequences. Thus, the word of the king, the president, the ruler, the lord, the boss, the CEO, the state, the party, the master, or the chieftain is the law." This is not a test. This is your emergency broadcast system, announcing the commencement of the annual purges sanctioned by the U.S. government. Weapons of Class 4 and lower have been authorized for use during the purge. All other weapons are restricted. Government officials of ranking 10 have been granted immunity and shall not be harmed. Commencing at the siren, any and all crime, including murder, will be legal for 12 continuous hours. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be unavailable until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. when the purge concludes. Blessed be our new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
Medyo kinabahan ako dun
Same, partner. Kala ko magla-lockdown na tayo dito. An announcement of the commencement of the annual purge of the US has begun in their place. So, to Mr. Astronomo, what are your thoughts about this?
It is actually an example of how we apply deontology theory, ano? It just requires that people follow the rules and do their duty. Here, the commands or edict of the ones in authority and power are something that are taken and obeyed without any further question or objection. In that example, the government is the law in which the citizens of the US country are expected to follow. Once the commands and orders are given and handed out from above, everyone below is expected to follow unconditionally and without any qualifications.
So, I see. So, can you state more examples or situations of the deontological ethics?
So, some daily life examples include stealing, which is considered as a legal crime. We are taught not to steal anything or take anybody's things without asking them. Do not lie is the most taught ethics by our parents, our teachers, and everyone around. Lying is considered wrong, even if it is to benefit or bring about better consequences. The 10 Commandments is also an example.
So, before we proceed to the next guest, Who introduced this theory pala, and what are their contributions to it?
So, suppose one searches the entire history of ethical philosophy, in that case, one may not find a more ardent supporter of the deontological theory in modern times than the great German philosopher Immanuel Kant, a philosopher whose remarkable contributions to the history of philosophical thought placed him on par with the greatest of the greats among the world's foremost thinkers. Some regard Kant as the greatest philosopher who ever lived. In the words of one author, his entire philosophical corpus is brilliant, profound, rich, complex, and fascinating. No other thinker has contributed as many significant and brilliant ideas to the philosophical study of ethics as Kant.
Wow! Thank you so much for introducing the topic today, Mr. Astronomo.
First guess pa lang to partner, pero ang dami ko nang nalalaman from this theory. Speaking of Kant who introduced this theory, let us welcome our next guest, Ms. Arianne Mercado, a higher education lecturer of ethics who graduated from St. Louis University to further elaborate deontological ethics.
Magandang gabi po, Ms. Mercado. So, what does morality mean for the German philosopher Immanuel Kant? And how does he assess the rightness or wrongness of the situation?
So about the goodwill, the heart of Kant's ethics, Immanuel Kant claims that what makes an act right and wrong does not depend on its result or consequences, since all these are simply beyond one's control, hence a matter of luck or accident. Things typically happen in a different way compared to our desires and expectations, thus we have no control over the results of our actions. For Immanuel Kant, morality, as the sole and exclusive domain of rational beings, should be something of which one should have control, as he believes it can only be achieved by appealing to some universal rational ethical principle. His center of ethical philosophy is his primary emphasis on the importance of reason and the unqualified rational nature of moral principles. Moreover, his philosophical project established a form of morality based on an objective and rational foundation and a single set of moral principles for anybody who claims to be logical. And his remarkable philosophical work, Grounding for the Metaphysics of Morals, was published in 1875 as he wrote, "Nothing can be called good without qualification except goodwill."
I think this opposes the ethics of utilitarianism. In what way does Kant's ethics become a reaction to utilitarianism?
This truly contradicts utilitarianism, which puts an emphasis on the outcomes one can attain through action, since according to Kant, morality is primarily, if not solely, a matter of motive or intention and not a matter of what one can gain or achieve in acting. So the good here is what you should do. We must simply do good because it is good. Therefore, Kant's ethics is ethics primarily focused on goodwill.
Finally, it enlightened my confusion between the two. And with that, we'll be back after a short break.
Now, at this juncture, magbabasa kami ng mga comments from our live stream section. May makikita ka ba dyan, partner?
Okay, so partner, may nakita akong comment dito from Miss Jezreel Bertulfo. Sabi niya, pa-regards ako kay Immanuel Kant kasi siya talaga ang lodi ko sa life. Wow naman, Mr. Bertulfo. So, kay Immanuel Kant, kung nanonood ka man ngayon, ang shoutout na to ay para sa'yo.
Sa aking side naman, partner, may nakita akong comment ni Miss Jairi Dusaban. Sabi niya, Emmanuel moments, nasa Emmanuel ang trauma. Parang may pinagdadaanan ka sa mga Emmanuel Mare ah. Pero don't worry, makaka-move on ka rin yan.
O partner, may isa na naman ako dito oh. Sabi ni Miss Albacete, "Hello po, knock knock, who's there? Ethics, ethics who? Kung di matatawagan, ethics mo lang." Kapaka-komedyante mo naman, Miss Albacete. Mapapangiti talaga si Immanuel Kant dito.
Parang may nakikita akong matitinong comment dito, partner ah. Sabi ni Mr. Harlon Valdivieso, deontology is a normative system in which the rightness or wrongness of an act is predicated on pre-given rules or moral norms. For me, it does not imply that morality depends on motives. Wow naman, Mr. Valdivieso. Halatang halata na nakikinig sa ating show. Confident ako na magiging proud si Manuel Kant sa'yo.
Parang nauubusan na ata tayo ng comments dito, partner. And with this, babalik na tayo to our main show.
Welcome again to our talk show, and we hope you will be with us until the end because we're down to our third guest who will discuss another interesting topic.
Yes, tama. And partner, alam kong excited ka na and ating mga viewers to listen. Kaya let's welcome our third guest, Miss Gwyneth Conde. A round of applause, please.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here.
Good evening din po. So, for Immanuel Kant po, he believes that a person is only acting morally only when he suppresses his feelings and inclinations, and that's that which he is obliged to do. Could you perhaps provide more explanation in that po?
So, for a greater understanding, he simply said that if you perform an act because it makes you feel moral and you feel doing it, then that is what Kant would call an inclination. In Tagalog, kagustuhan. Ginawa ko kasi gusto ko. But if you perform an act because it is the right thing to do and an obligation exists, that is what he would call duty. In Tagalog, tungkulin. Ginawa ko kasi tungkulin ko ito. And the latter is considered moral by Kant. Hence, if one's reason for acting is simply out of one's inclination and as such no obligation is present, one cannot be said to be performing a moral action.
Wow, thank you, Miss Conde. Now, I understand what Kant meant about being worthy to be called moral. And if you don't mind po, would you consider giving us some examples?
Yes, actually, he said that the only act that is worthy to be called moral is an act that is done not out of inclination, but one that is done out of duty. For instance, a donor helps the needy not because this is his duty, but because it pleases him. He finds inner satisfaction in spreading joy. Again, he acts in accordance with, not from duty. On the other hand, another donor is going through a really bad time in his life. He no longer has any inclination in helping the needy, and it gives him no pleasure at all. Nevertheless, he does it because it is the right thing to do, and it is his responsibility. Now he acts from duty.
Thank you for elaborating it more, Ms. Conde.
In terms of happiness po, is it really true that duty is superior to happiness? What are your thoughts about it, and do you agree with Kant's statements po?
Happiness plays a much different role in Kant's ethics than in other theories. Kant explicitly rejects the doctrine of happiness, which states that one should act virtuously in order to be happy. Morality is not based on happiness. However, happiness is not completely left out of the picture. For instance, in my previous example, the donor may be helping those in need without any happiness, yet he still does it because it is his responsibility. And I agree with what Kant says that morality is not about becoming happy, but rather about becoming worthy of happiness by heeding the call of duty.
Wow, your explanation was excellent, and I appreciate it very much. And for sure, our viewers also learned a lot from you.
Thank you for your time, Miss Conde. So let's proceed to our next guest, Miss Amherstia Balili. Welcome to our show, ma'am. So how does Kant define categorical imperative and what is the universalizability principle?
Kant defines categorical imperatives as commands or moral laws all persons must follow, regardless of their desires or extenuating circumstances. As morals, these imperatives are binding on everyone. One of Kant's categorical imperatives is the universalizability principle, in which one should act only in accordance with that maxim through which you can, at the same time, will that it become a universal law. So, in lay terms, this simply means that if you do an action, then everyone else should also be able to do it. And in Kantian philosophy, a truly good act is one that can become a universal law. A merely self-serving act is by nature not generalizable and thus non-existent in the Kantian universe.
So, in theory, the universalizability principle sounds like a good idea. But can you give me an example to really understand what it is and its consequences?
So, imagine a world where every action was generalizable. Every action can be replicated by everyone. For example, if one person stole an item and got away with it, then everyone could steal items in the same way without repercussions. Follow this train of logic to its end, and you would have a world with constant theft and some serious trust issues. In this case example, Kant's universal law as the basis for morality is logically sound. The universalizability principle would eliminate petty theft, which society acknowledges as morally wrong. The whole point is that it is wrong or immoral to behave in ways that you could not reasonably and honestly be willing to have everyone else act.
Breaking news! President Ariza Domingo had lambasted some of the Middle East countries for what has become common incidences of maltreatment of our Filipino OFWs, especially women domestic helpers. Many of these incidents have led to some horrible injuries and even the death of our fellow citizens at the hands of their foreign employers. The president even ordered a ban on OFWs to Kuwait. She said that she does not want Filipino women treated like animals or slaves, as she aims to have their dignity protected from abuse. Let's watch this video.
I, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, have officially issued an official order prohibiting the entry of overseas Filipino workers into Kuwait to protect them from exploitation and abuse. The government of Kuwait should take action in response to the abusive treatment of Filipino workers. Please stop the inhumane treatment of the OFWs and respect each other. Thank you.
This is Asia de la Serna, CBN ABS News.
Without further ado, let's call our last guest, Miss Basherah Ayada.
Finally, good evening, dear hosts.
Good evening, Ms. Basherah. So, how can we apply the principle of humanity in relation to the President's pronouncement of banning the deployment of OFWs bound for Kuwait?
The principle of humanity or respect for persons concerns respect for the dignity of persons, which is oftentimes referred to as simply the principle of ends, or sometimes called the principle of humanity. According to Immanuel Kant, every human being has supreme worth and profound dignity due to the fact that he is a rational agent. This means that because of the ability to think, one can decide what to do with his life and pursue particular goals. One's essential dignity therefore mainly lies in a person's capacity to determine his destiny or end as a self-directed and conscious being. Hence, as a self-conscious and self-determining creature, the person as an end can never be subjected to any form of manipulation and exploitation as if he is just any other object that can be used to serve some other ends rather than as an end in himself. In relation to President Domingo's pronouncement, it is just right to ban the deployment of OFWs bound for Kuwait. Filipino citizens, especially Filipino women, have dignity and unconditional worth. They are not just mere objects, but persons with rights to their own lives to decide their destiny. Everyone should be treated with the utmost respect. Prohibiting them from entering Kuwait will protect their dignity and rights to decide their ends. Moreover, a statement says that Kant once wondered if there were a categorical imperative, what would its end be? Who does it serve? Since every action has an end, and since the categorical imperative is binding on everyone, its end must be given by reason alone and so equally valid for all rational beings.
So, what is this end that the categorical imperative serves?
According to Kant, the answer to that question is that all rational beings exist as ends in themselves. As an end in themselves, human beings have a value that is absolute and unconditional. This means that human persons are the ends or the goals by which the categorical imperative serves. Thus, Kant's second formulation of the categorical imperative goes, so act so as to treat humanity, whether in your own person or that of any other, always as an end and never as a means only. We human beings should treat ourselves with respect just like the way we treat others.
So to end our discussion on the multifaceted ethics of Kant, kindly discuss briefly the significant role of human autonomy in matters concerning morality.
The role of human autonomy in morality is crucial, as without this, morality becomes impossible. An act of man becomes moral when it comes from one's willful respect or reverence for the moral law, or simply doing the act for the sake of the duty alone. The action becomes autonomous when it is done without the expectation of any external incentives or rewards, and just purely for duty. Thus, a man's will is autonomous, as this is the seat of choices where one's motives or intentions emanate. When as autonomous and rational moral agents, we do things following universally valid rules and principles that we have laid down for ourselves, we become part of what Kant calls the kingdom of ends. This is a kind of an ideal moral universe in which respect for the intrinsic worth and value of all persons is exercised by everyone. In the kingdom of ends, everyone is equal and treated everybody fairly. The dignity of every person is glorified and is treated as a noble and valuable subject who is always cherished.
At ayun na nga partner, ang gagaling ng mga guests natin kanina. Marami akong natutunan sa kanila at sigurado rin ako na marami ring natutunan ang ating mga viewers sa kanila.
Correct ka dyan, partner. Sa wakas, natapos na rin ang ikatlong ethical framework sa ating series. So, para sa iyo, partner, ano ba ang mga strengths sa deontological ethics?
In our last episode about utilitarianism, we learned that a flaw with consequentialist thinking is that we can never really know what the results of an action will be. Pero sa deontological ethics, parang nawawala ang uncertainty sa mga mangyayari kasi we only make judgments on things we are certain about. Alam natin kung ang ating ginagawa ba ay tama o mali during the time that we are doing these actions.
Pak na pak naman, partner. Well, para sa akin, another good thing about deontology is about how it emphasizes the values of each person. Tinuturuan tayo nito na dapat respetuhin lahat ng tao and give them the rights that we expect ourselves to receive.
Yes naman, partner. Pero we should also consider that no ethical framework is perfect and has its own flaws. For example, ang di ko nagustuhan sa deontology ay yung refusal to consider the consequences sa ating actions. Paano na kung ang ating mga aksyon ay may mga masasama o magagandang dulot? Di ba yun importante?
I agree with you, partner. And para sa akin naman, ang ethical framework na ito ay parang it leaves us with no flexibility regardless sa ating mga circumstances. Hindi tinatanggap nito na yung ibang mga tuntunin ay may mga special exceptions. Minsan, kinakailangan talaga nating magsinungaling, lalo na if nasa life or death situation para maprotektahan ng ating sarili at ibang mga individual.
Agree ako dyan, partner. Kaya, kailangan talaga natin i-consider ang two sides of a coin, ano? Though may mga flaws ang deontological ethics, di pa rin natin maipagkait na marami rin itong mga kalakasan. And with that, we would like to thank our audiences for staying at the end of our show. We hope that you have learned something from the episode. This has been Fea Monique Mola
And Dexter Masongsong, signing
signing
off.
off.